Welcome to Top Shelf Tech. Today we have Greg Sharp, CEO and founder of ZenContract, joining us. Welcome along, Greg.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Jeremy. It's great to be here.
Look, let's just start with a little bit of your background because you've had quite an illustrious career in the IT and MSP community. So, did you want to just start by giving us a little bit of your background?
Sure. Look, I started with finishing my degree and scanning the paper for what was paying the most money, and I fell into technology in the early days, sort of probably mid-90s. Got a job with Protector Safety, became their IT manager, decided to travel and bluffed my way into a security job, and through my 3 or 4 year career in London, became the head of security for one of the banks over there. I came back and joined, was working for Trend Micro, actually, I think it's Soft Solutions, and then joined BTG as employee number one, and we grew that up to about 60 odd people, and I sold out of there in 2008 and started Base 2, which was a purpose-built MSP, and very much in that recurring revenue model, and built that through to sort of mid-COVID and sold out of that. And then along the way, we built some software for MSPs that manages contract automation, which is probably what we're going to talk about today. And so I find myself now talking to lots of MSPs around the world around the struggles that they have with contracts, and hence the solution that we have. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Married with 2 wonderful kids and 1 cat.
So you've kind of come from this, a lot of people do product ideation and stuff around, methodologies like design thinking, going to discover problems. You've been right in the midst of this whole problem with MSPs for some time around how do you produce good contracts? How do you do that in a sort of automated fashion? And that's kind of led you towards the ZenContract world and instead of this shift into software and SaaS.
Yeah, it was born out of both necessity and 20 years of making some really solid mistakes. So it's certainly in the early days of my time back in New Zealand, we were doing a lot of business on a handshake. It was very much the way things were done in New Zealand, and some mildly thought of as offensive by saying, hey, we're going to put a contract structure in place. We started to see in the mid 2000s, so 2004, 5, 6, 7, that as we were getting more mature with our business and integrating and partnering with larger businesses, we needed to have a construct in place. And so we went towards some templates. We made some mistakes with those. Then really didn't come into its own until you had fixed recurring revenue contracts. So a certain amount of services for a certain amount of price. And if you price that wrong, as you well know, I'm sure we all do, and those that are listening, you can get yourself into a little bit of strife. And so putting together a robust process based off 20 years of learnings and putting that into a methodology where it can be easily assimilated into your business became a real passion, and something that we started as a nucleus inside Base 2, and around about 2017. I actually had a look the other day. The ZenContract business was actually formed in 2016. So
Okay. Yep.
It's been started off as a what you call an MVP, and that was suitably rubbish, and then it got a little bit better and a little bit better. And the one thing that COVID actually gave us a bit of time was we had 20 odd foundational customers that gave us a lot of feedback. And so just like a really good ice carving, we kind of chiseled the sides off all of this thing until we had a pretty statue, and that's kind of where we find ourselves now. In the last year, it's been maturing significantly, and ultimately it is around allowing an MSP to find a process that wasn't normally there, have it easily assimilated into their business. It's immediately best in class, immediately audit capable, and it takes all of the automation from beginning to end for contracts and eliminates those manual tasks, eliminates risks, gives them a lot more time in their day, immediately boosts their enterprise value. We've done a lot of research and found that any type of revenue that's on a contract with no term or a term is immediately worth twice as much as not. And so we're all one day going to groom our businesses for sale. We're going to run them as efficiently as we can in the meantime. There's that old saying that you either leave the box in a sale or leave your business in a box, or you've sold it, right? So one way or another, you're going to leave it. But getting it ready, not necessarily for sale, but getting it ready in a way where it's running with minimal risk and high operational efficiency, with complete clarity between yourself and the client, is the way you go.
So it's the sort of the homework thing that you procrastinate on fixing up your projects. And you talked about some real benefits to the MSPs. On the flip side, what do you see from the MSPs customers when they're getting better at contracting, getting clearer, and sort of articulating the services that customers are getting? How does that improve the relationship?
So the interaction that you have, for your service provider and the client is basically built on trust. It's a relationship the same as you and your partner, or working alongside your brother or sister or anything like that. So if you're acting and operating in a way that is consistent with the original engagement, or even the amended engagement, should you change it along the way, then you build trust and you build clarity. And so the foundational notion that you have with contract system that is easy to create, to negotiate, to get executed, to reference it later on, to go and have a look at it and say, hey, do we agree that? We didn't agree that? All parties have complete clarity over what is being promised and what is being delivered. Then you build this trust, and what happens is a lot freer flow of communication between the two parties, and you end up doing more business together, right? And it's proven over time where a lot of the research that we've done, where there is a contract versus no contract, where there is a referenceable contract versus one that's hard to find, where only one person signed it. And that is part of the problem that we're framing up. So the benefit to the customer, which is our customer's customer, not to get too deep on it, but is that they have clarity. They also have real knowledge that their service provider has a system, can be audited, is referenceable, knows exactly what's going on, is going to negotiate the renewals ahead of time and not let everything expire and then fling you with another 3-year runaround. Those types of things that all detract from a trustful relationship.
It effectively becomes a communications tool, right? And if you're thinking about, I guess, the IT industry, services industry in particular, often has fairly poor customer experience ratings. They're better than ISPs often, but not always fantastic.
It's not something we're famous for.
No, not something we're famous for. And I think that that point around the expectation settings up front, very clear on what the service is. And this is something that I've seen through my career. Majority of the time that customers have issues with the service, a lot of around a misunderstanding of what the service was that they were sold, what they thought they were getting. And I think that while contracts are things that people like to sort of tuck away in the bottom drawer, having that document, having it very clearly communicated, we will be delivering you these services, I think is a great starting point in terms of that, set expectations up front in the relationship.
Yeah, it's. I always don't really like the saying under promise and over deliver. It's promise what you're going to deliver, and then deliver it, right? So it's a real clarity of exactly what's happening, and the ability to be able to really easily go and check. Oh, is that what I agreed to? Oh, okay, that's fine. And that builds compound trust. And when things are building in that way, it gains momentum, and more lines of service open up. You end up getting more business as the service provider because you know exactly who that person are and what the relationship. And that's another thing I haven't touched on just yet, is that people are transient. So those relationships that you have, one person's going to come out, another one's going to come in, and if it's really easy for them to pick up where the others left off, and not just have all the knowledge of what was agreed in that person's head that's left and gone to another business, then the system allows that. They can see all the contracts there, they can see what was negotiated, who signed it, when was it signed, when's it up for renewal, and everyone's back on an even playing field with exactly what's being promised again. So that's systemizing this thing that, you're right, it's not sexy at all. And traditionally what we've really done with contracts is got them signed and muscled through that and then stuck them in a drawer and hope we never have to look at them again. But that's planning to fail, like we're going to have to look at it again. There's going to be a change in personnel. We'd like to cross-sell and upsell. We need to renew them because they all have a term. Then that is, that's where we're looking to get Zen with the contracts and actually give everyone a system to be able to follow.
And if we're talking about getting Zen with the contracts, if you're coming from where you've got Word documents and people can kind of freeform edit them and that kind of stuff, and you're moving to a platform that has a lot more, process rigor around it, quality controls. Do the salespeople that you often use it love or hate your platform when you put it in?
So the easy way to answer that is after 3 months, they love it.
Yeah.
And change is change for anyone, no matter what. And certainly we, the salesperson, had a little bit of freedom to be able to go and do minor edits, let's call them, to be able to get the deal done. They don't like that so much. But what it does for the business is it gives a highly scalable, repeatable process.
Yep.
Right? Great MSPs or great service providers are built on repeatable process. And it's almost a statement that would be undisputed by anyone. And so once they have the process and they know the rules of the game, they can get these things built in minutes, not hours, or even minutes, not days in some cases. They can get them turned around because a request for approval goes off and comes back really quickly. You don't have to wait for Samuel or Samantha to wait by the water cooler and get a piece of paper signed, right?
And I presume with your product as well, in that first 3 months, you probably have, as it goes in, your customers finding out a whole lot of things around how their contracts were maybe not structured in the best way, and moving towards more of a gold standard that then, to your point, when you've completed that process, you can get a contract out the door really quickly, really accurately. You've got a whole process around sign off, that's really useful, but that kind of bedding in that there's an element of the structure that you've had your contracts and actually having to move that to something that is a lot more repeatable.
Yes, obviously, if you want to have a repeatable process, just by the pure definition of the two words, then all of these idiosyncrasies or minor uh, specific edits that are for each of these customers, we need to find a way to drag those out. So what we do is during the onboarding process is we draft over to a master services agreement any service schedules that have specific terms to them. Those can be edited and sent off for approval really quickly. But the master services agreement, we tend to drag that out for. That's highly repeatable.
Yes.
Yep. Easy to send off to all of your customers. Yep. Our system now has a bulk send capability and an MSA manager, so you can send off MSA to all of your customers all at once and then manage the process of who's seen them and signed them and everything. And part of the onboarding process is to extract some of those learnings that we have from all of the onboardings we've done so far now. And while every MSP or service provider is different, Jeremy, there's a lot of similarities in there. So we can see and head off some of the mistakes that they've had in the past to be able to give them best in class or best in service provider class, so that they can get this repeatable structure.
And you hold quite a unique position now, don't you? Because you see a lot at an aggregate layer. You see a lot of contracts, and how technology in contracting or legal hasn't always sat together that nicely. And in my experience, I've worked with some lawyers that are really good around technology, and they really understand it, and they understand the idiosyncrasies and why you might want to contract things in particular ways. And you've got others that sort of it doesn't really the two worlds don't connect. And with your view, you're sort of probably seen where this world's evolving to, and we've got different services models coming out now. We used to have support and maintenance, and that was quite clearly in a box over here that says, we'll look after this stuff and do that. You had projects over here, and it would say, hey, we'll go do these tasks and change these things. And with stuff like DevOps models and keeping environments evergreen, we're seeing that stuff increasingly come together. So what are you guys, I guess, able to observe from a general technology contracting perspective around the trends that you're seeing with how that's maybe a maturing part of our industry?
Yeah, firstly, I would say that we are not legal professionals, and certainly not contract law specialists, as in we didn't go to law school and pass the bar exam. So I put that off to one side. What I can comment on is that we are perceiving a lot of contracts coming through our platform, right? Bordering on hundreds now, and different go-to-work models. We are seeing an evolution. Certainly the whole MSP industry went through a massive transformation 10 years ago, going from break fix to recurring revenue. Right?
Yes, yep. We know that. All you can eat models, and yep.
Yeah, all you can eat models. And so now what we're seeing also is a blend a little bit of maybe so a fixed revenue for a certain amount of support plus some block time, so that you've got the ability to be able to morph for still a regular amount of revenue per month. 90% of it might be on your support revenue, and 10% on project and service improvements and maybe infrastructure improvements. So you've got this continual improvement over time. So we're certainly seeing that. We're also seeing systems where, with security type services, there is a pool of funds that's built up to be able to deal with something in an incident, we're seeing a little
Yep.
bit of that.
Okay.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
certainly
Yeah.
unique.
Yep.
Might be $5,000 a month, but we're actually paying 6, and that gives us 12 a year to
Yep.
be able to deal
Yep.
with something when an incident comes up, or improve systems. So there's a little bit of a concept of proactive insurance we're seeing a little bit of. We are starting to see some MSPs using our platform for sending out audit and questionnaires to aid in the process of getting ready for being underwritten by insurers.
Oh, that's okay. Interesting. Yep.
And some MSPs are starting to charge for that service. Another type of model that we're seeing, which is really a different service line as opposed to a contract, but people are charging for policy management. So that might be managing in advance all of your IT fair use policy, IT security policy, work from home policy, any other policies if you'd like, and educating the users and seeing them and charging micropayments on a monthly basis for that. So those are some of the novel ones that we've seen, but certainly there is an additional side of just one fixed monthly fee for all of your support. People are tacking on some of these other proactive
Yes.
measures to
Yep.
that. It's probably the main difference.
And you've got quite a broad view, right? You're product active in a number of countries around the globe, and you've sort of got some key markets that
So there's outliers. We've got people in Alaska and Brazil and Portugal, but most of them are centered around the UK, Canada, North America, so call that USA and Canada. Australia and New Zealand. That's kind of the main markets that we beachheaded into, and we have the team members in all of those geographies that we just talked about.
yeah, it's exciting, I guess, to move from services businesses can be difficult to take offshore to sort of a SaaS business and being able to kind of expand into global markets a lot more readily.
Yeah, look, I mean, utilizing some of the relationships that were built in the channel over a long period of time, sort of certain names such as, Rob Ray and Pete Melby and some of the, Fred Ricola in some of those markets, because I've been over actively talking on some of their stages for some time. That's
Yes.
been
Yep.
beneficial. It's still a really hard road. So be able to launch a business out of New Zealand and push it into Australia is kind of, by comparison, immediately doable. And then crossing over the Pacific into the US, it takes some reasonably steely sort of kahunas, and not always that easy to be able to understand the, I guess, the parochial nature of people from North America wanting to buy from North Americans, and in the same way as we'd probably provide immediately to go after people in the APAC region. But the solution is good enough to stand on its own, and people are using it. Luckily, within that MSP industry, there's not a lot of, or if any, competition that are really concentrating on that contract management, contract lifecycle, or contract automation, whatever the term is you'd like to use. There's some crossover from some other products, but really in that contract stream, if that's something that you want to mature in your business, then ZenContract is it. And there's so much feedback have come out of the MSPs now, and with our agile development track, we've really improved the solution to now where there's almost little to zero churn, and there's a lot of value being added. But it's a long way of answering. Yes, we see a lot of contracts.
Yeah.
Hundreds of millions of dollars are going through the platform now.
Yep.
The money's not being collected through our platform, maybe
Yep.
one day, but
Yep.
the facilitation of sending out the contract with this amount of recurring revenue per month and this much one-off revenue, and then automatically building that into the PSAs. It's a good chunk of monthly turnover going through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any last thoughts you want to leave us with today, Greg?
Look, we're really excited about where our policy management module, like I said before, that's something that de-risks your own business and also de-risks the client.
Yes.
And
Yep.
for micropayments, you'll be able to monetize our platform. We're excited to see where that goes. But the main thing would be, I'm in this pitch competition coming up, and the opening slide actually that I'm using talks about the fact that great MSPs are built on repeatable process. And we are, as an industry, fantastic at taking technology and putting it into process, but just flinging that on ourselves and managing the contract process, we haven't done. And I think that by just taking some of our collective expertise and a little bit of software from somewhere else, being ZenContract, and putting it together, you're going to see some real benefits into your business and some real sanity back into your life if you're running the business or even responsible for contracts. So I'd urge you to have a look at it.
Yeah, absolutely, and we have been, and I think one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is we were very impressed with what the product does, and we can see real use for it as well in business. So look,
Awesome.
thanks a lot for joining us today, and we'll watch from the sidelines as ZenContract sort of goes and takes on the world. And like I said, we think it's a uh, really useful product, and I guess enjoy sort of watching these sorts of things as they mature as well.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Thanks for joining us today on Top Shelf Tech, and thanks to Greg Sharp from ZenContract, CEO and founder, for also taking the time to talk to us today.